Every morning, just before sunrise, the old man would walk slowly to the same bench at the train station. His coat was always the same, worn out at the elbows, patched carefully at the shoulders. He carried a small paper bag in one hand and a folded newspaper in the other. He never boarded a train. He never seemed in a hurry. He simply sat there, quietly, like someone waiting for something time had already taken away. People had stopped noticing him. He had become part of the background, like the rust on the iron rails or the faded paint on the signs. But the old man didn't mind. He looked at each train as it arrived, as if searching through the windows, looking for someone familiar. When no one came, he would open his paper bag, take out half a sandwich, and eat it slowly. Then he would leave. No one knew that years ago, something happened at that very bench. It was a rainy evening. The station was almost empty. That's when he first noticed the boy. The boy stood dangerously close to the edge of the platform, his head low, shoulders shaking. His backpack lay at his feet, untouched. Something in the way the boy stood, still but broken, made the old man pause. He walked up quietly, stood beside him, and gently said, "You're too young to give up." The boy didn't respond at first. He didn't even look up. The old man slowly sat down on the bench and tapped the empty space beside him. He pulled out his sandwich, broke it in half, and silently held it out. After a moment, the boy sat down. There was silence between them, long and heavy. But somehow, it didn't feel awkward. After a few minutes, the boy finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I failed my final year. My dad said I was useless. My mom cried. I just didn't know where to go." The old man listened quietly. He didn't interrupt. He just nodded, and his eyes softened. The boy kept speaking. "I tried hard. But nothing worked. I thought maybe if I just disappeared, it would be easier for everyone." The old man looked at the boy gently. Then he took something out from the inside pocket of his coat. It was a small folded piece of paper. He placed it in the boy's hand and said, "I want you to keep this." The boy opened it. It had just one line written in shaky handwriting. "Someone will need your story. Stay." The boy didn't understand it fully at the time. But he nodded. And they sat there for a long while, watching the rain fall beyond the platform. When the boy looked up again, the old man had already stood and was walking away. He didn't even ask for the paper back. Years passed. That boy never forgot the man with the sandwich or the paper. He kept that note in his wallet through school, through his exams, and through all the nights he thought of giving up again. But each time he remembered, someone will need your story. He studied hard. He worked even harder. Eventually, he became a decorated officer in the civil services. But one thing always stayed in the back of his mind: the old man. He visited the station many times, hoping to see him again. But every time he looked around that platform, the bench remained empty. He asked around, but no one knew who the man was. No one had seen him in years. The boy, now a grown man, began to wonder if it had all been real, or just a moment his mind had created to survive. Then one winter morning, nearly a decade later, he saw him again. The same bench. The same coat. The same slow way of eating a sandwich. But this time, the old man looked older. Friendlier. His hands shook slightly, and he didn't have a train ticket in hand. The officer walked up slowly, heart pounding. He stood in front of the bench, almost afraid to speak. "Sir," he said gently. The old man looked up, eyes narrowing slightly. His expression was confused, as if trying to recognize a face through a fog. He studied the younger man's face for a moment, then looked away with a polite nod. He didn't recognize him. "You don't remember me," the officer said quietly, almost to himself. The old man paused. "I'm sorry. My memory's not as clear these days." "I was 18, the officer said, his voice soft but steady. "I had failed my final year. I was standing right here, near the tracks. You gave me half your sandwich. You told me I was too young to give up." The old man blinked, something shifting in his eyes. He looked again, this time longer, deeper. "You sat on the bench," the old man said slowly, pieces coming together. "I gave you a note." The younger man nodded, tears in his eyes. It said, "Someone will need your story. Stay." I still carry it with me. A quiet smile spread across the old man's face, full of warmth. "You grew up," he said, his voice cracking just slightly. "I looked for you," he said. "I waited at this station so many times. You changed my life. That note you gave me, I still have it." The old man looked surprised. "You kept it?" The officer nodded. "And I became who I am because of it." They sat on the same bench again, years later. This time the younger man spoke more. He told him everything, how he studied, how he got through each challenge, and how he often thought of that rainy day. Then he asked gently, "Why don't you come with me? You don't need to sit here alone anymore. I still have my parents' old house. You can stay there." The old man looked down for a long moment. "I used to live there," he said quietly. "My son and I. After he passed, I couldn't stay in that place. I left." There was a long silence. "I didn't know," the officer whispered. The old man nodded slowly. "Maybe I was waiting. Not for a train, but for peace. Maybe it's time to return with my son." The officer stood up and offered his hand. This time the old man took it. They walked away from the station together. One who had once saved a life with a sandwich and a sentence, and one who carried that sentence until it became a life worth living. Sometimes, the smallest moments create the biggest changes. And sometimes, we are the answer to someone else's silent prayer. Please do like, share and subscribe because you deserve to hear the stories and learn from it. See you in the next video.